Another special edition of Chef's Kiss. Today is apparently the end of the world. China and Russia are attacking the United States via AT&T. Apparently, my cell phone still works, and I'm doing a podcast now. So I don't think they've infiltrated yet. But more importantly, we got Luke Arcani, Fox the Gambler for the Phillies station. He's the MLB insider covering Phillies. This is the guy I wanted to talk to. Luke, it is so hard to find baseball people and then to talk baseball stuff. So when I find somebody that likes to talk baseball and the game and the Phillies, it's like almost like a therapeutic kind of thing. So thank you for joining today.
It's definitely I would say it's probably, maybe other than hockey, probably the lowest sport with the amount of, I think, content wise. Obviously, your big two are basketball and football. But I love baseball. I played it my whole life. It's always been my favorite thing. So now that I get to kind of talk about it, it's a pretty cool job for sure.
Yeah, this is the best time of the year. After football, and it's kind of that little lull. We actually got a game coming here in 6 minutes, Padres versus Dodgers. So
yeah.
we'll get you out of here in time so we can watch that game. 'Cause I want to watch that game too. Joe Musgrove on the bump. Really excited for that. But real quick, Luke, just tell people who you are, where you work, and where they can follow you.
Yeah, so my name's Luke Arcani, kind of like you already said. I am going into my second full year with Fox Sports The Gambler. Radio station runs through iHeart out of the Philadelphia area. We're live Monday to Friday every day, 3 to 6, iHeart 102.5. But kind of going into my second season with them, reporting all big things. Phillies, just MLB in general, really. Started up the podcast with Sean Brace last about 2 weeks before the regular season ended. I think we were talking about it kind of going into July, August last year, but once we kind of realized that the Phillies were probably going to make a serious push again, we were like, this was probably a good time to start getting it rolling. So we started Luke and I on the Phillies. That was kind of the name. It's funny because the name, now that we look back at it, it seems kind of funny, but it all started with Brace one day on the air just saying Luke and I, and we were talking, and he said Luke and I on the Phillies, and somebody whoever was calling was like, that would be a good podcast name. And it's kind of rolled ever since. So we're live there a few times a week. The off season was definitely a nice break for us. We're around once a week, but once the season kind of gets back into the swing of things, we'll be live at least 3 times a week.
Yeah, I mean, it's very difficult. I mean, remember winter meetings? Winter meetings used to be exciting.
It's there was stretch, man.
We got winter meetings, we got stuff going on. Nothing happens.
And
now.
Especially this off season with the Phillies, it's like other than Noel, what the hell do you talk about that people are actually interested in?
Scott Boras, I think, is terrible for baseball. That's my opinion. I don't know how you feel about that, but when you own that many high-profile athletes and you own the market and you decide when we're going to sign, what we're going to sign for, and if not, we'll wait, I just think it's bad for baseball. Rob Manfred, I know he was talking about having a flurry of things happen at winter meetings and having a deadline almost. That, to me, was the first good idea that Rob Manfred has ever proposed. I don't know how you feel about that,
Probably
but I would love
right?
to see that.
Yeah, it's what are these dudes gonna do? That's what I've been saying. And we've seen in the past, the guys. There was a few big names in past years that just waited to sign, and if they want to do that, then I guess go ahead, right? But what's the point? It's pretty obvious to me that the big starters right now, Jordan Montgomery and Blake Snell, aren't getting, whether it's the years they wanted or the AAV they wanted. I think it's more the years. I think Snell was going in kind of looking for this 7, 8, 9 year deal that. He's not going to get that. He's not the type of pitcher that you give that long of a deal to. He's a high walk guy. He's not he's going to strike people out, but he's not the flashiest out there, right? He doesn't throw insanely hard, right? I don't know what he was kind of expecting and what their camp was kind of expecting, but it's pretty obvious that none of the teams want to give him that right now.
Luke, I don't think there is many, if any, pitchers that I would, if I was in charge of a baseball team, be giving 8 or 9 year contracts
No, exactly.
to a pitcher. way too much liability, okay? I'd rather front end it, the 4 year, maybe 5, but especially when you're dealing with pitchers 28, 29, you see pitchers that need Tommy John surgery way too often. The liability that they're going to miss time is just too high. So, again, to the opposite point, it's not my money. I don't give a shit. Go ahead and pay him.
Exactly, at that point.
Yeah.
And I think the Nola, one of the exceptions, I think, kind of was the Nola contract, right? Because granted, he's getting up there, I guess, in age. He's around 30, but he's never been, knock on wood. Nola never gets hurt. Like that.
Yeah.
That's always been the thing. Like Nola's been kind of like the outlier in that pitcher market where he I couldn't tell you the last time Nola missed a start. Right. So
right. Yeah,
he's going to be out there. He's shown that no matter what, he's going to eat the innings and he's always going to make his starts. So that Nola deal, like we just said, I would never give that long of a contract to. I think Nola's kind of the exception. Did I want the Nola deal to be 7 years? Not really. But it's if you offer him and he takes it, then right, you're going to be happy with it no matter what. Like I wasn't mad when the contract came out.
Here's how I think Dave Dombrowski is kind of formulating this team, right? He gave Trey Turner, 11 years, 12 years, over a decade. Bryce Harper, same kind of thing. It looks like he sees the winning window in the next 3 to 4, maybe 5 years, whatever it is. There's a small window there that you have to win. And he's willing to pay these players, Trey Turner, Nola, whoever, to get that up front, and then that back end is kind of just collateral damage to have these premier players, because that's what the price is going for.
Yeah, and I think the Phillies kind of know that, like you said, this is kind of their window, the next 3, 4, 5 years, because, I've said it, right? I love that we're giving these guys these long contracts, but once you get to that, 39-year-old Trey season and that 41-year-old Bryce season, it's either you hope they age like fine wine, because if not, it's going to be a high payroll, bad baseball team, right? Because unless Bryce Harper's like the next coming of like God over the next 5 years, like I don't think he's going to be as good now as good at age 41 as he is compared to this year or next year.
And I'll say that, but you know what, Luke? I think him moving to first base is really going to save his body as he's getting older. Getting out of the outfield and playing first base, I think you could have a top 5 first baseman for the next decade. So him moving to first base, I think, was huge. Sucks seeing, Rhys Hoskins go. I was watching today on Pluto TV. They have the greatest games on the MLB channel. And they had Game 4 NLCS in 2002. And it was just like electric. He hits 2 home runs, and he'll be missed for sure. But Bryce moving to first, like you said, moving forward, I think, is really going to save his body.
Yeah, I think the move was kind of an obvious one, right? If you can extend the career of probably a future Hall of Famer and the future of your franchise for the next 10 years. And honestly, when you look back on the Phillies in 100 years, right? Or 50 years, 100 years, right? Bryce Harper's going to be a top 5 guy once you look at that, the overall organization, right? So if you can make that career probably as long as possible, because it's going to be pushing a almost 20-year career for him, which is awesome. And the fact that probably 13 to 15 of the years are going to be played in a Phillies uniform that's awesome.
Yeah, well, if you look at, Philly greats, Mike Schmidt, he had I don't know how many MVPs, 3 MVPs maybe in a World Series. Bryce already has 2, on the cusp of a World Series. So he's trending in that direction as a, one of those lifers, one of those Mount Rushmore of a Phillies kind of guy. So I love him, and I didn't always love him. I'm from Chicago. I was born and raised a Cubs fan. I assimilated to this Philly culture about 3 years ago when I moved here. Kyle Schwarber, Castellanos are all former Cubs, so it was really easy for me to fall in love with this team. But I didn't like Bryce Harper when he was young. I thought he was cocky. I'm like, screw this guy. He's a hot shot. And then I come here, I just fall in love with him. And he's really matured, and you could just tell the passion that he has for the city, and that I think really goes a long way too. So all on board for him.
Yeah, he's just grown up from years past what he ever was on the Nationals. He was, he was that young I mean, he was like getting like LeBron comparisons coming out of high school. Like he was on Sports Illustrated at like 16 years old. He was like those first few years with the Nationals. He was a hothead, man. Like he like led the league in ejections. I think like 4 years straight. Like he was just always getting tossed out of games. Like.
I remember in college, my buddy was showing me YouTube videos of this 16-year-old kid hitting 500-foot bombs with a metal bat. And I'm just like, oh, whatever. He's got a big loopy swing, whatever. Turns out, like, yeah, he is that generational talent. Didn't finish high school, gets his GED, gets drafted, and, the rest is all history. So
I remember sitting there. Yeah, I mean, I remember sitting there watching him hit. There's one of him somewhere on YouTube. He hit, like, the top of a water tower, like 500 feet away in high school. And I'm sitting there like, who is this dude? Like, it's nuts.
All right, Luke, I want to talk about outlooks, obviously, for Philly season. So tell me this, because, like I said, I've lived here, it'll be 3 years in July. I'm moving, to the Philly area. And the Philly fans really have they have high expectations, and personally, I think some of them are unrealistic, right? Because you look at just the NL East, right? The Braves are the best team. If we're looking at it, that most talent, whatever, and it's arguable, whatever. But it's very hard to win like baseball. It's hard to win a World Series, 162 games, and then you got a team that's got 82 wins like the Diamondbacks, and they make it to the World Series because there's so much variance in baseball. But my thing is just kind of getting to the postseason. I don't care about winning the division. Obviously, last 2 years, they don't win the division, and they go on, go to the World Series, NLCS, whatever. But outlook for this team, like, obviously, we got Whit Merrifield that got picked up. But just overall, what are the expectations you think for this team? A lot of that core coming back, a lot of the same guys. What are the expectations that you have?
Yeah, I mean, I think a trip back to the World Series is needed right now. I'm not saying this is World Series or bust, because I don't believe any season is really World Series or bust, other than if you're the Dodgers and you spend $1 billion on 2 players. Then it's probably World Series or bust. They have to worry about kind of getting there first. But I think they're set up for a good year. I think the bench is something that I've always really honed in on, and I think it's something that they've always kind of left to the side. I think the Merrifield addition is going to be bigger than people think.
I agree. 100%.
When I look at teams that have won the World Series, I look at, if you need, one of the things that's the most forgotten about is if you're in the 6th, 7th, 8th inning of a game and you need a big spot up at the plate from a pinch hitter, like, who are you going to go to? If you think of the Braves when they won 3 years ago, they had Jorge Soler off the bench in the one game. Came up, hit the absolute shot of a home run. Right? You have these teams that obviously your big stars win you the World Series, but baseball is such a sport where you can't win a World Series with just like 5 good players. And I think that's kind of where that's hurt the Phillies the last few years. I think they've had the star power, but then kind of once you get deeper and in that depth and towards that bench, you're kind of like, all right, well, who's next? The Phillies last year didn't have any really good pinch hit options, right? They had like Jake Cave and like that was. I mean, when Jake Cave's probably your best option off the bench, that's probably an issue. So I think the Merrifield's going to be bigger than I think people are kind of saying and thinking. I think just kind of having the depth and kind of having the guy that I think we kind of always wanted Scott Kingery to be. That 800 average or that 800 OPS kind of plays all around the diamond, can get you a base hit. We'll hit a home run here and there. I think to add that kind of guy into a clubhouse with, Harper, JT, Schwarber, Castellanos, those big name guys, I think that's kind of going to go a long way. And then I think the biggest part that I'm most confident in is the overall pitching staff. I mean, statistically last year they had a top 5 rotation and a top 5 bullpen. They really didn't lose much. I think they gained some depth in the bullpen, and I think some guys that they believe that they can turn into some bullpen arms. I think if you look at a top three right now of Aaron Nola, Zach Wheeler, and Ranger Suarez, I think you can kind of put that up against anybody in baseball right now. That's one of the best top threes in baseball. And then your top, obviously, reliever guys. Hoffman had a huge year last year. Alvarado's just a monster. If you have those two guys kind of leading the way with you, I think the bullpen's in good shape. So I think it's going to be another good year. I think the biggest thing for them right now is they have to get off to a hotter start. They can't have this lackluster April where they fall to 10 games under 500 going into May, because if you want to look at win totals and you want to look at getting above that 90 win mark and maybe even trying to compete for a division. I know the Braves are good, but at least try and compete, right? Like at least make the Braves' job like a little more difficult than it's been the last 2 years. So I think it's going to be a good year. I'm not necessarily saying if they don't win the World Series, I'm out, right? But I think they have a good chance to get back there again this year.
Yeah, I'm with you. In regards to Whit Merrifield, I see two sides of the coin on this, like you said. I don't think people realize how big of an influence and impact he can play. First off, for his versatility, right? He can play left field. He can play second base. You can't take health for granted, right? Bryson Stott is up and coming. He can be a top 5, top 7 second baseman, if not already very soon. I love Bryson Stott, right?
Yeah.
So you got depth behind him. You can play left field. Now, when Marsh is going to play in left field, obviously we know he got knee surgery. That's also insurance as well. There was a point in the season last year where Brandon Marsh had better splits against lefties than righties. So I'm not huge on like the matchup necessarily, like lefty pitcher, got to have a righty batter. If the dude's hot, let him hit and like get comfortable with having him hit against lefties like that. So versatility for that, right? Also, coming off, like he's proven. He's a 3-time All-Star. He's led the league in steals, hits, a couple times. Him coming off the bench at 35 years old, like we talked about Bryce Harper, going to save his body a little bit more. He's not going to be getting 500-something at-bats a season. So when he does come off the bench, he's going to be more productive. So I do like that a lot. And just, like I said, having that depth as well. Not letting Johan Rojas bleed to death in the postseason. 4 for 43, right? You have a guy and he's 1 for 20 something. All right, we need to get somebody else in there because I can't have Johan Rojas come up to bat, bases loaded, and giving free outs. So now you have that option to put someone else in there, like you mentioned. The bullpen, like you said, the guy I want to see make the team right away would be Orion Kerkering. Okay, They brought him up 3 games. In September, October, they brought him up, pitched 3 games, and then the next appearances he makes are the biggest innings of his life, right? For a 22-year-old kid, very young, he's got filthy stuff, dude. I was watching, those, pitching ninja, whatever. He's got those, you could see him side by side, those pitching slots or whatever. He's got nasty stuff. So if you do believe in him, because I think he's going to be the closer, and next year, year after that, whatever. He's still very young. But I want to see him make that opening day roster and start instilling some confidence in him, to say like, hey, and Rob said like, we don't have a closer yet. I'm not a fan of closer by committee. I don't know how you feel. Jose Alvarado, I think is, nuts, dude. I love him. Having a big lefty come in to close the game, it's kind of, somebody's job can win it. Who wants to take it? It's kind of up for grabs. And I'm okay with that starting the season. But moving, as we're getting to the dog days of summer, there needs to be a guy. Like, I want to see that's our closer. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, I've been kind of going back and forth with that. If Kerkering has the mindset, I think he could have that thing locked up by June, right? I mean, he has the stuff to be the best reliever in baseball. It's just a matter of the mindset and being able to age well right now. I'll put his 2 pitches up against anybody in the entire MLB. It's absolutely filthy, and we've seen it. Granted, I think teams were kind of starting to catch on to it, maybe in the playoffs, because once you come up, right, you're young, there's not much film. All they see is the slider. That's it. So if they can kind of jump on that and they see it, then they know. But I know they were working a lot on the fastball more with him in the offseason, trying to get that pitch in. But he's kind of my big question mark in the bullpen, because him being good makes, I think, this bullpen pretty good. Him being great makes this bullpen like almost unbeatable. If you can roll out Kerkering, Alvarado, Hoffman in the last 3 innings of most of your games, it's lockdown, lights out, right? That's a really good last 3. So I think Kerkering is hopefully going to be that kind of guy, but I've never been opposed to kind of getting the feel for it, right? If you feel like you want to throw Alvarado in the 7th and get these outs, and that's fine with me. But if you want to save him, I'm just never a fan of saving a guy and then kind of maybe even losing the lead, right? Like if you're playing the Braves and you have to go up against Ronald Acuna and Matt Olson in the bottom of the 7th, then I think you put Alvarado in every time, right? I don't want to lock Alvarado down just to the set closer role strictly because I know he can get outs wherever you put him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you on that. It's your best against their best always. Like you said, no point in saving it because I need these outs right now. So there's no guarantee that, I'm going to save my closer and, we don't have the lead now in the 8th and the 9th, whatever that is. So with you on that. Who needs to take the biggest steps this season? I love Alec Bohm. I think he's great. I think he needs to take a little bit more of a step. We saw in the postseason, struggled a little bit. And obviously, so did Rojas. And Rojas he played 59 games in the regular season. And he was great. He hit over 300. He did exactly what you needed to do. Johan Rojas doesn't even need to replicate the same season as last year because there's so much talent in that lineup. If you get close to that and you could just justify having your glove in center field, that's good enough. So in regards to people taking steps, I would like to see Alec Bohm kind of take that next step up. That would be my guy I would take. I don't know about you.
Yeah, Bohm is definitely my, I think, number one guy that really needs to kind of almost prove himself. He's 27 years old. This is his 5th season now with the Phillies, including that COVID year. I feel like we're kind of starting to talk about Bohm as this, young guy still. And, he's 5 years into the league.
Right.
I need more power out of Bohm. I need more balls in the gaps, right? I need more of that. And I think he was great with runners in scoring position last year, but I need that OPS to go up. I think it was around a 760 last year, which it's okay. It's not great. It's not horrible, but it's not great. Because honestly, I think Bohm's going to be playing for his job over the next few years. If Alec Bohm continues to just be, an 18 to 20 home run guy for the next 3 years, there's no guarantee the Phillies give him a deal, right? Especially with if they really think Aiden Miller's the real deal coming up in probably 3 years, 3-ish years, and third base is a hot spot. You can find a lot better third basemen than Alec Bohm. And obviously he got his arbitration number this offseason. And if I were the Phillies, there is no reason for me right now to give Bohm a full contract until I have to, right? If I can file arbitration with him for the next 2 years, that's exactly what I'm going to do. Because I think with it's one, you have a really good third base prospect coming up probably in the next 3-4 years. But 2, I just don't think Bohm's earned a long-term contract yet. I think it could be pretty easy for him to earn one. I think if he has the best year of his career, right? If he goes out, he doesn't have to hit 40 home runs and 120 RBIs, but if he can go out and give you maybe an OPS over 800, then that's a reason for me to give him a contract. But I think Bohm for me right now is really the guy that I need to see take one more step because he's kind of taken a step forward and then taking a step back and then taking a step forward and taking a step back, right? So I think I need to see Bohm take 2 steps forward this year, and then I'll feel really confident about him over at third.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, especially, Matt Chapman's, he's still out there. Some team could sign him. And I don't know if the Phillies are actually in the market to sign like a short-term guy or, give someone else a contract. But like you said, if he's looking to kind of secure that spot and, get a contract, stay with the Phillies, absolutely needs to take that step forward this season. What about spring training? You going to be out there this spring?
I don't think this spring, no.
Okay.
Not this spring. I've never been.
Okay.
I have never been down to Clearwater.
I go every spring, either to no, it's mostly in Florida. It's usually Tampa. I went to Clearwater the last 2 years. I'll be out there March 21st through the 24th. So I'll see a couple Blue Jays games. There's one at Jordan Steinbrenner Stadium against the Yankees. And then I don't know if it's the Pirates or someone else. But
yeah, I feel like they only play the Blue Jays, the Tigers, and the Yankees.
Yeah.
It's like the only 3 teams I feel like they ever play.
And they're close. You're in Dunedin, Clearwater, Tampa. So they're all within 40 minutes from each other. So I'm excited for that. What would I be looking for at spring training? Whose job is on the line? Some young guys to kind of keep an eye on. Who would you say would be those candidates?
I think kind of that maybe the 5th in quotes outfielder role. Mm-hmm. For me, that's kind of it right now. Everything's really, in my opinion, set. I mean, I think Johan Rojas is your opening day center fielder. Like I think, barring some horrible spring training where he goes out and doesn't get a hit the whole time and makes a bunch of errors, like I don't see a reason to not have him out there on opening day. I think especially now with the Marsh injury, I don't really think there's any reason. I mean, they've said Marsh will be ready, but I don't think there's any real reason to really rush him back into this role right now, especially with Merrifield there now as an option. But I would say probably that later outfield bat, will it be Jay Cave, will it be Pache? Who kind of gets those last maybe 1 or 2 bench bat roles? For me right now, it's probably Jay Cave, but I don't know. There's guys that I think right now your definite 3 locks on your bench right now are Garrett Stubbs, Edmundo Sosa, and Whit Merrifield, right? Those are the 3 guys that I think have that locked down. After that, you go, do you want another left-handed bat? Because Garrett Stubbs isn't really a bring off the bench kind of pinch hitter. He's more of just kind of your backup catcher. Do they want another lefty in Cave? Do they trust Derek Hall again? Do they think he's kind of got that power back? So I think guys like Derek Hall, Cave, Pache, that's kind of really the guys who are playing for their job this spring. But everything else, which is a really good sign, and it hasn't been like this for a while, everything else is kind of set. Right, your rotation's set. Most of your bullpen spots are set, and your rotation's done, right? So I think for the first time, there hasn't really been a glaring need right now.
Sure. Yeah, I think that was filled for sure. One thing I was thinking about as well, it happened after the postseason, was Taijuan Walker. So Taijuan Walker, he gets 15 wins last season. Not a great ERA, but he gets a lot of run support, and 15 wins is still 15 wins, and he didn't get a chance to get the ball once. They kept him on the NLDS roster, they kept him on the NLCS roster, and they chose not to use him. So if I was Taijuan Walker, I would have a huge chip on my shoulder this season. I want to show you and everybody that you are not going to the postseason without me, and you have to use me. So I really see that. And he also tweeted something after that. They were someone tweeted oh, he didn't get the ball, and, he quote tweeted it or something like that. So that would be one thing as far as the rotation. Walker having kind of that chip on his shoulder, and then Christopher Sanchez is seeing a full season of him, right? I mean, I know he's the 5th starter there. They also got Spencer Turnbull. I think that's more of a higher upside, low floor Coming off of injury. He threw a no-hitter in 2021. He was, a pretty good prospect with the Tigers. But seeing Christopher Sanchez take that role as a fifth starter and kind of do well enough. So as in like a first full season. So I'm excited for that, kind of seeing those guys perform at spring training.
Yeah, it's once again, I think it is very nice to go into a spring training not having to be like, we need this and we need this. I think the Walker thing is definitely concerning. There's obviously a reason that a guy that wins 15 games for you didn't get an inning in the playoffs. I think the general consensus last year was the issues early on in the games. I think his ERA in the first inning last year was in the sevens. So granted, you don't want that in the playoffs. So that kind of also eliminates a potential bullpen role for him in the playoffs. Because, once you get to the playoffs, you're not really throwing all 5 of your starters anyway.
Right.
But I think it's the matter of him being able to show that I think his stuff is good enough to keep pitching and keep being out there, because that was probably the first time I've ever seen a guy win 15 games and his team make the playoffs and him not pitch an inning.
Yeah, it was a little bizarre, and obviously he took that to heart as well. Through social media, we saw all that stuff. So, a lot of good stuff to look forward to this spring training this season. Luke, I have one last thing here. Dancing on My Own. Love it or leave it. I'm going to tell you. Okay. This is how I feel. I love that song. I think people try to correlate a song with winning. If you think a song determines if you're winning or we didn't win and we played the song, I think it's just more of a culture, more of a vibe kind of thing. And I don't know why that can't be just a part of their identity, right? The Cubs have Go Cubs Go. Cheesy song, dude, right? Go Cubs Go. But that's their song after they win. And it hasn't always been like that, but they've adopted that. So this, especially with this core group of guys, it's the same guys it's been mostly over the last 2 seasons. So I like that song. And obviously it's going to be dependent on the clubhouse and Stubbs and, how they feel about that playlist and stuff like that. But I just want to get your opinion on Dancing on My Own.
Yeah, so here's my thing with that. I think people just insanely overreact with it. I think the whole "you can't play this song in the locker room" is, honest to God, one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. I think it's so stupid. There is nothing, the last possible thing that the reason they are losing is because of the song. That them listening to a song in the locker room after they win a playoff game has absolutely nothing to do with what they go out and put on the field the next day. So I'm kind of sitting at the point where if they want to, if it's going to help them win, then leave it. If they don't want it, then delete it, whatever, that's fine. Because honestly, whenever I hear the song, it's always, the first thing I think of is the first playoff run of the two. It'll just always forever stay with 2022 over last year for me. But I think this fake outrage, trying to find a reason why they lost, blaming your top 4 guys for going 0 for 37 in the last 3 games of the series on a song they play in the locker room. It's just it's just weird to me. I don't know.
Right.
But yeah, if they want to leave it, and if they want to get rid of it. I'm not some stickler where I'm it has to go. I kind of like the song. I think it's funny. It's such a random song that you would never think would ever be played in a locker room like that.
Yeah.
And I think their playlist is honestly hilarious. The videos that have come out from from them in the locker room after they've clinched and stuff like that is just it's the funniest thing like ever.
Down in Dallas.
So, oh man, it's hilarious. Like blaring on Fox Sports. So yeah, if they want to keep it. But all this like fake outrage stuff about a song they play in the locker room, it's just so dumb.
Yeah. I like I said, I think just people just hate the song because of whatever it's insinuating or whatever it's about, and it's a loser song. And yeah, it is.
And everyone puts the song on the 3 games that they lost and not the other 25 that they won. Like that's what I never understood too. It's like they're like, oh, we can't listen to this song. We lost 3 games to the Diamondbacks with it. Yeah, but you also won 20 in October the last 2 years with it. Like, what? Yeah. Who cares? Like, stop. Granted, it's also just Philadelphia fans needing something to complain about because we know, and we're the best, and we know it, but there always needs to be something to complain about. And I think that's kind of been this thing of everybody thinking that a song that's played in the locker room after the game is the reason why they went 0 for 29 in Game 6 and 7 at the best stadium in all baseball and lost to an 85-win baseball team in the NLDS.
Yeah, it's an easy scapegoat. Like you said, it doesn't make any sense. Yeah, it just brings me back. It gives me October feeling, cool breeze, everyone wearing red October. It gets me going. So I love it. Luke, thank you for coming on today, man. I appreciate it, guys. Luke Arcani. Luke, let everybody know where they can find you, where they can follow you this season.
Yeah, so my personal Twitter is @ArcaniLuke. I'm on there a bunch. @Luke and I Phils is kind of that's the handle for the pod with myself and Sean Brace. Yeah, got one coming tonight, 6:30. We're live once the season starts, probably about 3 days a week. On the Daily Ticket with Sean Brace, Fox Sports The Gambler, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that jazz. So
awesome, Luke. I will definitely see you at some games this season.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Catch some games. Maybe do some content outside. That would be a lot of fun. But yeah, man, thanks again for joining. I appreciate it. I'm gonna stop recording, hang around, and then I'll get you out of here. All right.
Sweet.
Guys, thanks for watching. We will see you next time.